So today, as you can see, we're going to go over GPL version 3 and how this can affect your closed source applications. So one of the biggest issues, that most developers, especially in an enterprise, they come through is, using external libraries, and if those have dependencies to basically other software that you have. So I'm going to go over one of the biggest challenges that you may have, when you're doing this, and that is using it inside your application, and how you can get around that part. So the biggest thing that I want to cover here is basically that GPL has a loophole, especially if you're using LGPL, but GPL itself has a loophole that lets you get around certain things. For example, let's say you have your application developed and somehow you want to go over it and see if it works. But all of a sudden you're realizing that the library that you were using is GPL protected, which means, now if you're going to commercially use it, or, for any other reason that you want to profit from it, you might have some issues because people are going to go after you, the person that wrote it, basically. I mean, it's up to their discretion, but it could happen. So what can you do for that is, one of the biggest things you can do is basically use GPL essentially, as an external program, external application, which essentially allows you, to not use the code and not tinker with the code. It's basically just like running any system command that you're using anywhere else. And that way, it allows you to read the output, get the benefits of the program, but not actually use the source code of the program or the program inside your code programmatically. Again, this might not work for everyone because, obviously, sometimes you might want to do it programmatically, but it is a good starting point, I think, to get you going if you want to really use that GPL software in your application. And I've done it several times in the past. I used it as a command, and when I say a command, I mean just like any Linux command, like ls or copying files. That's what I mean by using it as a command. You don't include it in any way, shape, or form in your application like a library or using the source code of it. So if you do that, you should be covered, and not really have any issues with running it, basically. So yeah, that's really it. There are other workarounds, but they're in the gray zone, and I don't really recommend it to anyone. If you want to be absolutely safe and use GPL the way you should be, then you can probably use the command line approach. If you do want to look into more, obviously go to the GPL lesson 3 and read through everything, but one thing that I particularly found useful is that if you go in the quick guide, and basically just read those 4 first bullet points that they have here, and what it serves, you would see that, the most important one here is basically that you can share your code with other people and friends. That's why basically they created it, and they want to keep your software free, but you're still getting to share that code and not really violate the license itself by using that command. There's obviously some implications if you do misuse it. I'm not going to cover them here, but they are briefly described here, so you can also use this as a guide, to see what can happen to you, if you do get caught violating the license itself. And at the end of the day, it's up to the discretion of the person that has written the software if they really want to go after you, or do they just want to make some kind of compromise. So, it's not like a one hat fits them all, right? You have to go through a lot of motions, to see what's actually going to happen. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Not a lot more here. I didn't want to take up too much of your time, but I think, if you put that into practice, I think you might get good results. Thank you.